This is Rural Health Leadership Radio.
Episode 177, a special Christmas Day episode with Jess Ames and Dr. Greg Vallino with Angel Flight East.
There's a light coming in for rural health, and I feel like a lot more people are starting to pay attention to it now.
Welcome to the Rural Health Leadership Radio with your host, Dr. Bill Oxier. Each week, Dr. Oxier has a conversation with a different rural health leader to discuss what's working and what's not working in rural health, along with other topics of interest to rural health leaders. Rural Health Leadership Radio's goal is to improve health in rural America by providing a simple, no-cost means to share information and connect rural health leaders from around the country. And now, here's Dr. Oxier with today's guest.
Hi, everybody. I am your host, Dr. Bill Oxier, and welcome to this special Christmas episode of Rural Health Leadership Radio. I would like to thank my company, the Dynamic Leadership Academy for Rural Health, as well as our generous donors throughout the year for underwriting the cost of Rural Health Leadership Radio. And remember, it's never too late to donate. We're offering a few free gifts along with your tax-deductible donation before the end of the year. You can check it out at www.rhlradio.com. But now on to today's guests. I want to thank Jess Ames and Dr. Greg Vallino for taking time out of their busy schedules to have a conversation with us today. Welcome to Rural Health Leadership Radio, Jess and Greg.
Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Jess Ames is the Outreach and Events Director at Angel Flight East, and Dr. Greg Vallino is an optometrist at Village Optical, as well as a volunteer pilot for Angel Flight East. So let's get right to the first question. Jess, who is Jess Ames? What's your story?
So I went to school at Millersville University, which is located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I majored in public relations. And during my college career, I interned with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in Harrisburg. And I really became passionate about working for a nonprofit organization during that time. So after school, when I graduated, I knew the field that I wanted to work in. And I found Angel Flight East in 2014. Started out part-time, and then I became full-time a year later. So I've been with the organization for 5 years.
Oh, wow. That's cool. So why did you decide to focus on nonprofit work for an occupation?
So when I interned at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I was a part of their Man and Woman of the Year campaign. And I really saw all of these individuals raising money for blood cancer research. And that campaign, they were raising money in honor of a little boy and a little girl in the community who had blood cancer. And the little girl, Ashley, she was 6 years old at the time, but she had a very slim chance of surviving leukemia as a baby. And I'll never forget when she did her first speech at the finale of the event. She came down and said, "I want you to be my best friend forever." So after that, I just knew I wanted to be in a nonprofit for my career and walk away from work each day knowing that I helped someone in need.
Yeah, that has a powerful impact, something like that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I know Angel Flight is not specific to rural healthcare, but you have a great focus on rural health. Why is that?
So this is our second year of focusing on rural communities. We've done outreach to major hospitals in big cities before, and we kind of took a step back and thought about where people are coming from and where somebody could utilize the service the most. And that's why we decided to focus on the rural communities for people who are most likely have a rare disease or need to get to a clinical trial, and their rural community can't help with a situation like that, and they need to travel to those major cities, but they just don't have the means to get there.
Yeah, very important. So important work. Thank you so much. So Greg, how about you? Who is Dr. Greg Vallino? What's your story?
It's a very simple story. I'm just a dad with 4 kids. I'm an optometrist in Pennsylvania, and I'm very lucky to have a very family-oriented private practice that allows me time to do things like the Angel Flight Feast and spend time for nonprofits. But like I said, just a person that lives next door to everybody.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I'm sure there's more to the story than that, but being a busy professional, especially an optometrist, you've made time to become a pilot. Why did you decide to become a pilot?
Well, it's a little bit of a different story. I never thought I'd end up being a pilot, but my dad was in the Air Force, more in the defense system, but never became a pilot. But growing up, I always hear him tell me he's going to build a helicopter in the backyard. He's going to become a pilot. But, he had 4 kids also, so he never was able to pursue it. So there was just an opportunity in my life when I was 40 and met a lot of interesting people that would take me flying. So on one flight, someone actually turned me a gift certificate and said, you need to go get your own license. So I sat down and thought about it. I thought about the stories of my dad, and I thought it'd be a great surprise for him. So I went and pursued it without him knowing. And thank God my mom didn't know about it also. Yeah. But when we got that, probably the greatest thing I ever did was it was actually a Christmas one where I invited him up to the hangar and I said, hey, I'd like you to, go up flying with me. So we went up, I showed him a pre-flight and my instructor showed up and, they had sparked up a conversation and I'll still never forget this. And then there was this weird pause between the two. And I threw my dad the keys and I said, Dad, you got to be pilot in command once. So he was 70 years old and shocked at that. So that was probably one of the greatest Christmas gifts I've ever given my dad, besides flying him around. But that's the major reason, I pursued something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool story. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, you're a busy guy. You're an optometrist, you're a pilot, and now you also do this volunteer work. Why focus on this volunteer work?
You learn something and you really don't know what you're going to do with it. But after you actually are introduced to Angel Flight East, and I was introduced by a friend or actually a partner in the plane, and we did our first mission, and you just saw how great of a job and what you actually accomplished to make somebody happy was just an amazing feeling. I mean, in my field, I see patients every single day, try to make them see better, cure some of their diseases that they're dealing with. And that's a great feeling too.
Yes.
But this feeling is just totally different inside of being a doctor because they don't know you're a doctor to begin with. And you're just taking them to their care and they're just so grateful. So I think that's the gratification that they give you in return is worth everything, every moment you spend doing this.
Yeah, that's wonderful and a wonderful feeling. So how do you become a pilot with Angel Flight? Are there any qualifications or how do you do that?
So the qualifications to become a pilot with us are we require 300 hours of logged flight time, as well as an IFR rating. And then we ask pilots to either own an airplane or have access to an airplane. So a lot of the pilots are in flying clubs and will rent their plane. And then once signed up, we don't require any max or a minimum amount of flights they have to fly. It's really whatever their schedule allows. We're always very grateful. So some pilots fly once a year while others fly 10 times a year. It's all based upon what they are able to do.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's good to know. So you're not getting a first-time rookie flyer to take you up on this?
Yep.
Okay, good. That's good to know. So as both of you know, the name of this program is Rural Health Leadership Radio with an emphasis on leadership. So what's your definition of leadership? Jess, let's start with you. How do you define leadership?
So I really had to think about this. I even Googled it and read a few articles just to kind of get my thoughts in order, just because there's so many different definitions of leadership. But I think it's just somebody who is extremely motivating and positive with their team, as well as somebody who doesn't, they work on the same level as you and just are very trustworthy to the rest of the people around them.
Some powerful words in your definition there. The three I jotted down while you were talking were motivating, positive, and trustworthy. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that definition with us. How about you, Greg? How do you define leadership?
Well, I don't think I have those great words that Jess has there, but in a roundabout way, being part of my job is you get to meet a lot of different people.
Yes.
And, when you meet some of these people, you're like, wow, that's a great trait to have. Or I really like the way this person views different things. So I like to take a little bit from every person I've met, sort of bundle that all up and try to become that. So other people will also want that feeling when I meet them, that they like to bring those positive traits forward. So, but just to stay on the same level as everybody else, there's no reason for a leader to be above anybody. It's you got to be at the same playing level where somebody wants to follow your example, what you're doing.
I like that. Basically, I mean, part of this program's goal is to share best practices, right? And so if I could take the liberty of what you said, you are really taking best practices from others and combining that into your definition of leadership, which is kind of cool. Plus, I heard, I think, a little bit of pilot language in there because you talked about being level with others and being above others. So that's kind of pilot info, isn't it?
It's very important to be level.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, Jess, can you give us an overview of Angel Flight East and the community that you serve?
Sure. So what we do is provide free flights for patients who need medical treatment far from home. And this is done through a network of volunteer pilots like Greg, who use their own airplane and cover all costs of the flight. And we're based right outside Philadelphia, but we cover a 14-state footprint from Virginia to Ohio to Maine. So all of our patients and pilots are scattered throughout those states. And really, the only two qualifications for a person to fly with us is that they are medically stable and ambulatory. And once qualified, they can fly as often as needed, and there's never a charge to them.
Wow, zero out-of-pocket costs for the person that's being transferred?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we don't focus on a certain health issue. It's if people need to go for cancer treatment, clinical trials, rare diseases, anything that would require somebody to travel for their medical care, we can help.
Okay. But they just have to be in a medically stable condition to be able to
Correct.
take advantage of this. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So, Jess, we touched briefly when you were introducing yourself about the last couple of years Angel Flight is focused on rural. Can you talk a little bit about the rural initiative?
Sure. So we originally started out with outreaching to the state offices of rural health within our footprint, and they were a very big factor in helping us figure out where we needed to do our outreach the most. So we've reached out to critical access hospitals, federally qualified health clinics, as well as the county health departments, just to let them know we're here to help if you would ever come across a family who could utilize a service like this.
So you just reaching out one-on-one to these? Sounds like a lot of phone calls.
Yeah. We have an amazing group of volunteers helping with these efforts, but we do a lot of emails, scheduling conference calls. And then this year, we also attended all the state office of rural health, their annual conferences. So we were in the community face-to-face with the people who we were trying to reach.
Excellent. In fact, that's how you and I met, right? Was it the Ohio meeting we met?
Yes. I think it was the Ohio meeting originally.
But then we saw each other at a couple other meetings, I think, too. So
in New York.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Very good. Well, that's important work and priceless work. So thank you for spearheading that rural initiatives. Right now, I want to thank you, Jess, and thank you, Greg, for the interesting conversation. Right now, we're going to take a short break. Then we'll be right back to continue our conversation with today's guests, Jess Ames and Dr. Greg Vallino. Jess was just sharing with us all the work that it takes to keep a nonprofit going. And since Rural Health Leadership Radio is also a nonprofit, I can really relate to what Jess is saying. And with the end of the year here, it's not too late to help Rural Health Leadership Radio with its mission with a tax-deductible gift. In fact, in the spirit of Christmas, we have some gifts for you if you make a donation before the end of the year. All you have to do is go to our website at www.rhlradio.com and click on the donation tab. There you're going to see that by giving a $50 donation, Rural Health Leadership Radio will send you a free copy of the award-winning bestseller, To Lead, Follow. Donate $75, and I'll send you a copy of To Lead, Follow, as well as a copy of the Wall Street Journal bestseller, Masters of Success. And for a $100 donation, in addition to sending you a copy of To Lead, Follow and Masters of Success, I'll also throw in a free copy of What Rural Health Leaders Are Saying. And of course, any donation, large or small, is greatly appreciated. And half of all the donations we receive, again, no matter how big or small, will be used to help cover the costs of producing this podcast. And the other half is going to be used to help fund a scholarship that we plan on awarding this spring to a graduating high school senior who's going to continue his or her education in a health-related field and takes a pledge to work in rural America. So please support Rural Health Leadership Radio by making your donation before the end of the year by visiting our website at www.rhlradio.com. Thank you. We're having a very interesting conversation today with our guests, Jess Ames and Dr. Greg Vallino. Jess is the Outreach and Events Director at Angel Flight East, and Dr. Greg Vallino is an optometrist at Village Optical in Pennsylvania, as well as a volunteer pilot for Angel Flight East. So right before the break, we were talking about the rural initiative that Angel Flight East has embarked on. Greg, it's Christmas time and a time of year when we like to talk about miracles. Do you have any miracle stories in your experience as a volunteer pilot for Angel Flight East that you can share with us?
No, there's quite a few, and I could probably keep you busy for a whole hour. But,
okay.
It's interesting. I've been flying for Angel Flight East, I believe, for maybe 7 years now.
Okay.
And last year, I would go to a lot of town events, and there's a lot of foundations in our area for childhood cancer. So, and we've flown a lot of kids with childhood cancer. So, with the approval of Angel Flight East, I asked if I could do flights, not only carrying somebody, but also, bring some special recognition to the foundation of childhood cancer. And they gave me total approval, which was really nice. So really, I made a shift when I do these missions that I will reach out to a foundation and ask the parents of the child who's passed away if I could do a memorable flight just in their name. And the basic concept of the whole thing is that they're the true angels supporting our wings. And it's very well receptive. And I'm always shocked when I meet the parents and they're just like, yes. And they give you all these little things. So what I'll do ahead of time is we'll take some pictures in the plane of the, photos, or last one was Dumbo, which was given to us because the daughter loved Dumbo and loved Dumbo to fly.
Yes.
And I met the dad on this one, on all that. So in the morning, a friend of mine, Justin and Buddy, were supposed to take a flight. And it was a day in Pennsylvania where really Armageddon was going to let loose at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And I still remember calling Justin up, and he's like, hey, let's try to leave early so we don't get caught in a storm. But neither one of us could do it, so we just plowed through with the mission. So, the great things of social media, you post this on Facebook, the pictures of Dumbo, the flight plan, and everything ahead of time. And, the parents could see that. So Justin and I dropped the patient off, and we're ready to travel back. And, this is when it's supposed to be really bad storms coming in, and we're ready to divert or, spend a night someplace else. And on the flight back, it just, nothing happened. It was totally uneventful, and we just landed. And he and I just looked at each other. I was like, first I was like, whew, that's great. The other one was like, wow, that was weird. So, I go home, debrief, and look up on Facebook. And without any of us knowing, the father posted the same picture I did, but on his site. And I'll tell you exactly what he wrote on there. Underneath the picture, he wrote, Angel Flight East provides free air transportation to qualified patients and their families by arranging flights to distant medical facilities, delivering supplies to disaster areas, and reuniting families during desperate times. Today they are taking someone, I apologize if I get emotional because
Sure.
I'm still emotional.
Sure.
Today they are taking someone from Northeast Philly to Virginia. They're returning home. As you can see by the radar, storms are on their way. I've asked our angel to hold off the storms long enough for the safe flight and return. So I don't know. That was Marin's Fierce Fighters. She's a girl who's 8 years old, passed away of childhood leukemia. But I got to tell her thanks. That's probably one of the biggest miracles I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's amazing. Very touching. That is, I'm getting choked up hearing about it. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's truly amazing and truly a miracle. That's a great story, and I appreciate that. Any other stories that you wouldn't mind sharing with us, Greg? That as long as I've got a box of Kleenexes here, but we're talking over the phone. I don't know if that'll help you or not.
Yeah, but I don't have one on my side.
Okay.
No, they're all just amazing. The people are miracles that you're taking.
Yeah.
They're so grateful. You pick them up. The last mission I did, and you don't expect anything other than I'm just flying today. I am just going to go turn to my wife, who, thank God she's an understanding wife, because I've been through, certain weather and she just follows me along.
Yes.
But you don't expect anything. So when you're done, they'll hand you a card, and, the patients hand you cards saying thank you. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize really what your impact is doing. And those are miracles within itself too, yes. Because here you are just thinking, you're flying your airplane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. It truly is miraculous, and they're happening all around us every day. We just got to pay attention to them,
Yeah. I mean, my wish that one day people look up in the sky, instead of seeing just like a general aviation aircraft, they'd actually, oh, look, there's another angel flying right by.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that image and story there. So, thank you for sharing that with us, Greg. Jess, what are the qualifications to use a service? You've touched on this a little bit, but I mean, is there anything more than just, you're in stable medical condition and you need to get somewhere?
So when somebody calls us to request a flight, we have 2 flight coordinators who take them through the process of how it works. But really, the 2 biggest qualifications are that they are medically stable and ambulatory to fly in a general aviation aircraft. And we do ask for a need verification form that should be filled out by a third party not related to them. And since the pilots are donating all costs of the flight, we just want to make sure the people aren't taking advantage of them. But we don't ask for financial statements, anything like that. We always say we want to help people before they get to that point where all their credit cards are maxed out and things like that.
Gotcha.
And then just as long as the doctor signs off that they are safe to fly, we are able to help them.
So what do? They just give you a phone call and say, hey, can I get a flight, or how does that work?
Yeah, a lot of people will either call us, or we have the option for people to request a flight on our website. And then we do ask for at least 5 to 7 days notice to find a pilot. And once all the paperwork is filled out, we have a really neat flight coordination system that we can schedule the flight in and then send it out to the pilots who are in that flight path.
So do the pilots, do you tell them what the situation is, or do you just say, hey, Greg, we've got somebody that needs to go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania or something?
Mm-hmm. The pilots are able to see the different types of medical conditions, as well as if it's an adult or a child, the weight of the flight, how much luggage they have to bring. So the pilots can see all of that information, and it's helpful for them because it will help them figure out if their plane can handle that flight or not.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
And there are some restrictions. Every once in a while, you'll see someone who has a leg issue. So the low wing planes you have to climb up on. So there'll be restrictions of which aircrafts they can get in or out of. So those things are always noted, so the pilot knows ahead of time.
Yes. Very important, I would think. Very good. Thank you. So, I get what you're doing, and you shared your geographic area of coverage, Jess. Thank you for that. What about our listeners who don't reside in your geographic area? Are there similar services where they live?
There are actually over 60 public benefit flying organizations across the country. A lot of us use the term angel flight, but we're all separate entities.
Okay.
So there's an umbrella organization called the Air Care Alliance, which is basically a resource for all public benefit flying organizations. So somebody can go on their website and type in where they need to go with their medical condition, and it will bring up a list of organizations they can call to see if they'll be able to help.
All right, that's great. And you know what? I will get the websites for Air Care Alliance as well as Angel Flight East from you, and we'll make sure we include those in our show notes. So if anyone in our listening audience wants to find out more, we can have that information for them. So,
okay, great.
You know, what you do is a true blessing for those who get to take advantage of it. So, you know, as we look at the future, any concerns, anything that scares you about the future that you're dealing with? Jess, I'll ask you that question first, and then I'll ask you, Greg.
We don't know how many people are out there that are not getting to their medical treatment just because they don't know there's organizations out there like this who can help them. So that is always very concerning to me, because we have this group of incredible pilots who are willing to go above and beyond for patients. It's just, we need to get the word out there and just make sure people know they can call us. And if we can't help them, we always refer them to another organization who may be able to help.
That's great, because transportation is definitely an issue, especially in rural America. So that's good. Yes, we need to get the word out there. What about you, Greg? What scares you the most about the future?
Well, first, I totally agree with Jess, because this even happened to me last night. And, part of my work is healthcare, and I do get involved with patients and their families. And I had a patient last night. She was very tired, and she gave me the history of how her mom is ill and how her brother-in-law is sick up in, 4-hour drive to going back and forth for his lung cancer. And I said, well, you should call Angel Flight East. And she's like, what is that? So, getting the word out, she didn't know it was even available, something for that.
Right.
So the big concern is just getting that word out so people know, hey, there's people to help you. Life is crazy for every person, husbands, wives, working double jobs, adults. We make it easier for you to have a normal life. And then the other concern is, geez, you always hope there's going to be enough pilots to do this.
Right.
Those are the only two big concerns.
Yeah. Okay. I get that. Thank you for sharing that. So, Greg, let me stick with you. What excites you the most about the future?
Well, it's just rural health is just great. I mean, I am seeing younger doctors coming out and talking more about going into the rural areas and seeing patients. And even retiring doctors, I know that retired, they've gone to work for nonprofits, and they've gone out to farther seek healthcare to offer their services. So I'm excited to see the healthcare system doing that.
Yes, absolutely. That is exciting. What about you, Jess? What excites you about the future?
I think a light is being shown, whatever the plural is. Yeah. But there's a light coming in for rural health, and I feel like a lot more people are starting to pay attention to it now.
Yes.
And before it was just kind of, people are like, rural health? Well, why do we need to focus on that? So it's really creating awareness about these issues and helping the people who need the most help.
Absolutely. And through this podcast episode too, we're giving a new definition to flyover country, because in the past, that's rural America was called flyover country, not necessarily in a complimentary way, but you're redefining that through Angel Flight, which is greatly appreciated. We've covered a lot of territory in the short time we've been talking to each other. Greg, if our listeners only take one thing away from our conversation today, what should that be?
And just don't forget there's organizations like Angel Flight East out there to help you, and to create that normal life that you can have, whether you're sick, ill, or even it's just a family member that wants to be seen. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone, call them, or even talk to any other pilots out there, so that it really just like everyone to know this is a service that is available.
Absolutely. Thank you. What about you, Jess? What's the one thing that you'd like our listeners to take away from the conversation today?
I would just have to bounce off of Greg, just to have people know that a service like Angel Flight East is available to them. And we always tell our new passengers that come to us, call us at any time. If you have any questions, we are more than happy to answer this and walk you through the process. And the volunteer pilots that fly these people actually become an extra arm of support for them. And many times the pilots and the patients develop a bond. So a lot of patients will get repeat pilots over time, and they become lifelong friends out of a service like this.
Jess Ames, Outreach and Events Director at Angel Flight East, and Dr. Greg Vallino, an optometrist at Village Optical in Pennsylvania, as well as a volunteer pilot for Angel Flight East. Thank you so much for joining us today for this special Christmas episode and sharing with us, Greg, the miracle story that you shared and the work you're doing. It's incredibly awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you out there for listening today to this special Christmas episode of Rural Health Leadership Radio. And I want to thank you all for sharing your stories over the year. A big thank you to everyone who listens. And I hope you and your families have a wonderful holiday season. And I want to wish each and every one of you a Merry Christmas as I share the story of Christmas with you. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. Merry Christmas, everybody.
If you would like to connect with today's guest, please send an email with your contact information to bill@billoxier.com. If you would like to be a guest or suggest someone else as a guest, have a question you would like to ask, or simply want to contact Rural Health Leadership Radio, please use that same email address, bill@billoxier.com. That's BILL@BILLAUXIER.com. You can also visit our website at www.rhlradio.com.
And we'd ask that you please support our sponsor, the Dynamic